When he first came to the high desert, Gene Shoemaker wondered if he was too late. Was the West all explored? The battles fought? Mysteries solved? But geologists are taught that truth lies in the rocks and dirt underfoot. Step by step, he pressed the earth for its secrets. What Gene Shoemaker found has made the ground itself less firm. Planet Earth not nearly as safe as we always assumed.
It's like being in a hail of bullets going by all the time. They are bullets. They're bullets out there in space. These things have hit the Earth in the past. They will hit the Earth in the future. It will produce a catastrophe that exceeds all other known natural disasters by a large measure.
Before Gene Shoemaker, few people gave it much thought. One of the most powerful forces in the making of our planet, and perhaps the deadliest hazard we face. This is the story of impact. March 23rd, 1993. Great telescopes around the world aimed their sights deep into the night. They were peering far into space, searching for traces of the Big Bang at the outermost reaches of the universe. But at one tiny telescope on a lonesome peak in California, three old friends were rummaging in a part of space much closer to home.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm on.
Gene Shoemaker, geologist, was looking for rocks, not on the ground, but in the sky. That night, he and his team found something astounding, a portent of another kind of Big Bang. Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 first appeared as a faint smudge in space. It grew into a blazing streak of light. By the time it smashed into Jupiter, every major telescope in the world was watching. The impact unleashed fiery plumes large enough to incinerate the Earth, and it raised a terrifying question. Could it happen here? And what if it did?
When we get to something in the ballpark of a mile in diameter hitting the Earth, it'll produce a catastrophe that exceeds all other known natural disasters by a large measure. In fact, the energy delivered would be like taking all of the world's nuclear weapons, putting them all in one pile and setting them all off at once. Actually, it'd be a little bit more energy than that.
Once scientists had said it could never happen. Now many were shocked. Some talked about the end of the world.
If something sneaks up on us, then there's very little we can do. In fact, today, the most likely situation is zero warning. The next impact of a mile-sized object will probably happen without any prior discovery of it at all. The first thing you will know is when you feel the ground shake and see the plume of fire coming up over the horizon.
He'd been taught cosmic collisions are inconceivable. But Gene Shoemaker likes to make up his mind for himself.
It was a path that I personally traveled in small steps. I had to teach myself that, in fact, if one really pursues the observations, the world is telling us that big things do fall out of the sky.
What the world told Gene, it said most eloquently at Meteor Crater. The gaping hole in the Arizona desert, nearly a mile wide, spoke of sudden disaster, catastrophe falling from the sky with deadly impact. There were similar craters in other places, but most geologists said they were the remnants of ancient volcanoes, formed over eons of time by constant predictable forces. Nothing this big happened quickly or suddenly. Fiery rocks falling from the sky have long been believed to predict disaster, not cause it. Meteorites have been feared as omens and cherished as relics around the world. For thousands of years, they were our only way of touching the sky, mysterious messengers from space. The intrigue they held for ancient oracles still captivates modern scientists. It was inside a meteorite, a Martian rock that landed in Antarctica, that researchers discovered the most compelling intimation ever of life beyond the Earth. Meteorites are chunks broken off larger celestial bodies. When they crash through Earth's atmosphere, most lose speed and power, so even big ones measuring up to 10 feet across usually don't cause damage on a large scale. Still, if you or your house happen to stand in the path of a stone from space, repairs will be necessary. Tons of meteorites rain on the Earth every day, most smaller than a pea, but that's enough to light up the night. This fireball was seen by thousands of people along the eastern seaboard in 1992. Many were attending high school football games, and some had brought their video cameras. A piece of the meteorite touched down in Peekskill, New York, and cratered Michelle Knapp's 1980 Chevy Malibu.
I was sitting in my house watching TV, and next thing you know, I heard this loud noise. It sounded like a car accident.
It was a chunk of stone speckled with iron, about the size of a football.
They told me the rock was estimated at 4 billion years old, which is about as old as the Earth itself. And that's exciting.
The Peekskill meteorite did make the local news, but like most meteorites, its impact was minimal. In 1972, a rock the size of a bus blazed so brightly it was seen in daylight and was filmed by a tourist near the Grand Tetons. There was no impact, confirming what most scientists thought, that Earth's atmosphere would incinerate even giant boulders or break them into relatively harmless pieces. What was it then that violently shook the Earth on June 30th, 1908? A blinding fireball exploded over a remote part of Siberia. As far away as England, an eerie glow lit up the sky. 2 decades passed before scientists could mount an expedition to find the site where the blast occurred. It was an arduous trip to an uncertain destination, but the scientists knew they had arrived when they saw the staggering devastation on the banks of the Tunguska River. Over hundreds of square miles, the forest lay flattened in vast concentric circles. The scientists suspected the destruction had been caused by a huge meteorite, an asteroid. They set out to unearth it. Long months spent draining the swamps and digging into the wasted land yielded nothing. For years to come, Tunguska would remain one of the great mysteries of the Earth. At about the same time, on the other side of the globe, a similar mystery haunted this giant bowl in the Arizona desert. In the early 1900s, Daniel Beringer, a mining engineer, found little chunks of meteorite around the crater. He drilled the crater floor in search of an asteroid, but came up empty-handed and deeply disappointed. Geologists weren't surprised, but years later, a young Gene Shoemaker was intrigued. What had happened here? It did seem like a giant wound in the earth. It appeared as though the ground had been dealt a devastating blow. Massive beds of rock that once lay flat were broken and thrust violently into the air. The rim was strewn with giant limestone boulders that could only have come from deep beneath the surface, flying hundreds of feet in the air. But like all geologists, Gene had been taught that even the most dramatic landscapes took shape at a creeping pace. Meteor crater could not in fact be a meteor crater.
People say, ah, yes, meteorites fall out of the sky. We accept that. A chunk that big, I accept that that falls out of the sky. But it was an intellectual leap to go from a fist-sized stone to a mountain and have a mountain come down out of the sky. As an undergraduate student, I didn't learn anything about impact. It wasn't part of geology at that time. Geologists are kind of folk that like to say, I'd like to see what the process is. I'd like to see it happen. Then I believe that it's happened in the past.
Gene Shoemaker was one geologist who saw something happen that would lead him to question the fundamental principles of his profession. He was in his 20s when he took on a job at the top-secret Nevada test site. Here he witnessed a new mechanism by which craters could be made.
It all takes place in utter silence until finally, the shock wave. Bam! And then it's followed with roiling thunder. It's throbbing, and you can feel the sound in your whole body. And that's a very dramatic thing to watch, too.
Never before had so much energy been harnessed or released. Could nature do the same? This crater had not taken shape over thousands of years. It was created in an instant, and it reminded Gene of another place he'd seen.
It was the largest crater at the time formed by a shallow underground explosion. And so I could go directly from this to Mother Nature's crater. My hunch was that I would go have a look at Meteor Crater and see what the structure was, because it had never been thoroughly mapped and described. And so I didn't know what the structure was until I went. But having mapped this first, I went to Meteor Crater, and voila,